Let's dance to the sound of playing on the radio. Let's sway, watercolor lights up your face. Let's sway through the crowd to an empty space. If you say run, I'll run with you. If you say hide, we'll hide. Cause my love for you would break my heart, yes it. If you should fall into my arms, tell me like,
Hello, Paul.
Hello, Peter.
I'd like to start by asking you what sort of music was played in the family home and what influenced you the most?
When I was a very young child, 3-year-old, I started listening to a lot of music. I have an older sister and she had one of those old Fidelity record players. And she used to have a load of singles, and that would be anything by the Beatles, Sonny and Cher, Mamas and Papas, Rolling Stones, Dave Clark 5, a whole load of stuff. And I would sit there listening to them when I was a little boy and absolutely fascinated with the sounds coming out of this little record player. And also my mum had a lot of records, so it was a right crossover, because that would be like Frank Sinatra and Elvis and Shirley Bassey and all sorts of stuff. So I grew up at a very young age listening to music. But then I discovered the radio in the kitchen, and I used to be able to just reach to switch the radio on when I was 3 and 4 year old. And I remember clearly hearing these great songs, White Shade of Pale, Aquarius, with a little help from our friends, Joe Cocker, Nights in White Satin, so many, Penny Lane. And I was absolutely intrigued, and I just literally went into my own little world while listening to all those songs. And then a couple of years later, I had this book, and in this book was these various pages. And one was, so you want to be an actor, and he might have been somebody like John Wayne, or so you want to be a comedian. And then I saw this page, so you want to be a pop singer, and it was Cliff Richard giving advice. And I was absolutely fascinated with that. And I didn't know if I could even sing then, until one day my sister got married, and my brother-in-law's father knew I knew these verses of this song, and he stuck me up on this jukebox at this hotel. We were having this big wedding reception, and I sang this song. It was like Nobody's Child, and I can vaguely remember there was a lot of older people, older women, nearly in tears, because it was one of them sad songs. But all I remember was getting lots of money, what seemed like lots of money then, you know. It was enough to buy.
Do you remember how old you were?
I was nearly 6 then, 5 and a half going on 6. And so that was my first media put on the spotlight.
All right.
At that age.
Did it show you that you wanted to do it later on?
Oh, yes, I did. And the next time I did anything like that was in the junior school disco. Now, glam rock had just started, so you had bands like Slade, The Sweet, and Bowie, Mark Bolan, Mott the Hoople. And I was fascinated. I became really fascinated. I discovered Top of the Pops around about October 72. And I was hooked. Every Thursday, I had to watch it, you know, just before bed. And I remember Blockbuster by The Sweet, and I went to sing it at a school, junior school disco, playing all records and everything like that. But we had an assembly hall with a big stage. So here's me walking on my own, and I just sang Blockbuster, unaccompanied. And anyhow, I got a free curly whirly and everything. I did it the following year, and I won it. And you wouldn't believe what song that was. That was it was a David Bowie song. It was Life on Mars, and that was it. Really, it started from there.
Right. So when did you first pick up a guitar to learn to play?
I learned when I was about 15. I bought my first guitar at 15. I wanted a 12-string guitar.
Oh,
So off I went, saved all my pocket money up, and bought a 12-string guitar. I don't have it now that way. I was just still had it. And that is why I started to learn a lot of songs on. So I'd learn. I managed to get Beatles books, Bowie books, and start learning guitar, get my way around all these chords and things.
Did you ever try other instruments?
I had a fascination with the drums. I managed to keep beat, and I still play about on drum kits now to this day when I get a chance. I think I would have liked to have been a drummer if I didn't want to be a singer.
Right.
A little bit of keyboards. I write on keyboards, but I would never. It's not the sort of thing I do live. I'm not confident enough to do that.
Had you started writing your own songs by then or?
No, I started writing when I was about 19.
Mm-hmm.
19. I thought I'll give it a go and see if I could write songs. And yeah, I had a few attempts at a few things. Some I just threw away, scrapped. And one or two I sort of demoed and things.
Right. Were you in a band at that point?
No, I wasn't actually. I wanted to be in a band. I was going watching other bands, local bands, and see what it was all about live. And that fascinated me, and that was it. I thought, that's what I want to do for starters. I want to get into a band, and I want to play all these pubs and go around the circuit. So I eventually did that from about 86 time.
What sort of music were you playing?
Then it was, I had a band, and we were more of a sort of rock pop covers band. So we were doing stuff like artists like the Cult, Iggy Pop, Billy Idol, Rolling Stones, obviously Bowie, Thin Lizzy, U2. Oh, blimey, the Cars. It was a right mixture of stuff, and it eventually got heavier and heavier over the next couple of years after that.
The portrayal of Bowie, when did that start? Was that before the band, obviously?
That started years before that. I was about 15, 16, and I tried so I don't know why, but when I look back now, I think I am pleased, but I wanted to sound so much like him, and I didn't think about it that much, but I started singing his songs all the time, right through. Well, by then it was from up to Scary Monsters period. So I was 16 when that came out. So I was listening to all these albums and all these different tones that David used throughout his career to that day, and I didn't think too much about it. It just seemed to happen, because when I was doing like guest numbers with bands, said, "Well, you do a Bowie number," and it started there. Everybody was saying, "Yeah, you sound so much like him."
It's Saturday night, and from Granada, Manchester, it's Stars in Their Eyes. Tonight, singing live, Paul Henderson is David Bowie!
Ground control to Major Tom.
Your wife, Tracy, had a hand in getting you on Stars in Their Eyes. Is that right?
Yeah, well, she could probably tell you more about that. I remember the program, and I remember the first time I saw it, and I was fascinated with some of it. There was 2 or 3 artists, I'm not going to mention names, I thought were absolutely fantastic. So me at the time, I think, oh, that's a great program. I probably would not have applied for it. But yeah, Tracy did. Yeah.
I'd also like to hear about how, when you first met, because she tells a story about the way you were dressed and the car that you drove, etc. So perhaps...
I had a Capri.
Yes.
She'll probably tell you more about that.
Yeah.
But I did have a Capri, a blue Capri. I wish I still had it now.
Perhaps Tracy could come in and talk to us about that then. Hello, Tracy.
Hello, Peter.
Could I ask you what your impressions of Paul were when you first met him?
The first time I met Paul was in 1984. I was out in a pub in Peterborough with a two-piece band called Phoenix playing. And Paul walked in and I was just aghast. He was so different. He was wearing a black fishnet top with a white blouse on, tied at the front, with a dragon on it. Black 20-pleat Bowie bag trousers, as they were called, and red boxing boots. And in addition, he had a bright red Ziggy haircut, green eyeshadow, blue eyeliner, and blusher. And I thought, wow. Straight away, he just took my attention. The person I was with happened to know Paul, so he came to our table, and then he did a number with this band Phoenix, which was Sorrow, which was a number Paul covered. And I was amazed at how much like Bowie he sounded. Going on to his car, when we started dating, he came to pick me up one night. I was nursing at the time at Peterborough District Hospital, and he pulled up in this Chrysler blue Capri with a bright red lightning bolt on the front. So all the girls in the nurses' homes were rushing to see this really different car. And then this guy with his, the bit I forgot to mention was the black cravat tied around the neck. And he emerged from the car, and these girls were like, wow, who is this guy? You know, he looks like a rock star, you know, and I was quite kind of smug that it was the guy who was picking me up for a date. So that's kind of the first impressions I had. And of course, our shared love of Bowie, which was a big thing back then. So that's...
Right. And you went on to be married with 3 children.
Everybody thought it wouldn't work with a rock guy, but here we are all these years later. We went on to have 3 children, and after the second one we married, and that was we met in 84, and it is now 2020. So what's that? So that's 36 years together. So yes, all good.
Could you tell us your involvement in Paul's appearance on Stars in Their Eyes, please?
Yes. Paul is very talented, as you know, but he wasn't always very good at pushing himself forward when he needed to. And I kind of took that on as my role. We'd watched Stars in Their Eyes, the first couple of series with Leslie Crowther, and I loved it. And Paul did secretly really enjoy it. And I said, you should go on. And he kept saying, no, no, no. I tricked him into recording some tracks and then sent them in along with an application form. And then when we got the reply, I told him. So he's quite shocked. But he then, from that, went on to have an audition. I think it was at the Bull Hotel in Peterborough. And then they loved him and he got through to the show. So I was so glad I did it, because I knew he'd be good for that, but he wouldn't have done it himself. So sometimes a good man needs a good woman kicking his bum.
So did you help after that? I believe you got some radio play for him and so on.
Oh yeah, insatiable. Not for me, but for him. 2 or 3 times I entered a quiz or something like that on various radio stations, particularly I would say Radio Peterborough and Radio Cambridgeshire. And of course, when they asked me about myself, I made an excuse and talked about Paul, that he was either recording one of his own songs or he was doing something with his Bowie stuff. And their ears pricked up and we got chatting and they said, oh, we'd love Paul to get in contact. And as a result, he did several radio shows, as I say, certainly he did several on Radio Peterborough. He did 2 or 3, I think, on Radio Cambridgeshire as well. So I'd like to think that I've, you know, tried to encourage him with his career. And I'm glad I have, because he's, you know, he's talented and he should be encouraged, as all you musicians should be.
Good. Oh, well, that's. I'm very pleased that you did that, because we wouldn't be doing this interview otherwise. Maybe. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Thanks, Peter.
It's gone from small affair to the girl with the mousy hair, but her mummy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go. There's a starman waiting in the sky, lighting up and meet us when he thinks he know our minds. There's a starman waiting. Space boy, you're sleeping now. Your silhouette so spaciously. Dance, put on your red shoes and dance with us. Let's dance to the sound of playing on the radio. On the radio. Now we got blues. Now we got blues.
So, when did you form A Lad Insane?
Formed the band round about 2003. What happened was an old friend of mine said to me, "Hey, Paul, why don't you form a Bowie tribute?" And I thought about that, and I thought to myself, if I did it, I'd want to do it properly, and I'd enjoy it that much that everything else I wanted to do with my own material and myself would end up on the back burner. And that's what certainly happened, because I'd finished with my I'd finished recording the album, I did, and then I just thought, right, if I do this, I want to give it 100% and make sure it's right. I didn't want it coming across tacky or anything, so it really started around about 2003. I thought, okay, I'll go with this, and then here we are today. A lot's happened since then.
Right. Could you tell us something about the members of your band?
Oh, what can I tell you about them? Yeah, they're a great bunch of guys. I've got on keyboards and saxophone a guy called Steve Beeston, absolutely brilliant keyboard player. Rick Cook on drums. He's done a lot of work with other artists over the years as well. Another great guy. And on bass guitar as well, I've got a great bass player called Franco Caprio. Carl Stone's on lead guitar. I've been working with Carl for many years, even on my own stuff as well. And he's got one of the hardest jobs of Bowie as a guitarist. And yeah, he nails it. He nails it all right. And then there's myself. So there's 5 of us. And as the current lineup, we've been together for since about 2008. Then I got my drummer, Rick, in about 2014.
Okay, you regularly play in front of very large crowds sometimes.
Yeah.
I know you. I think you can up to about 6,000 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, some of the festivals I've done have certainly been that. They've been absolutely fantastic. The audiences are great. I can't complain about it at all. It's been like a roller coaster the last few years. It really took off big time for us, around about 2008. We started getting bigger venues. We got out of the local circuit, then started playing theatres around England a lot. And then it's gone from that to theatres, festivals, playing all over the country, Scotland, Ireland, and places like Germany, Goa, Bahrain. It's been a wonderful experience, and I'm absolutely loving every moment of it.
That's great. What sort of venue do you like playing best?
I'm torn between. Well, no, it all depends. I was going to say theatres, but theatres are a different ball game to festivals. Festivals, a lot of the festivals we've done have been that people are there to see other artists as well, some great artists. But we've always been very well received at the festivals. Hence why we do a lot of them every summer now,
Right.
especially through England. Fake festivals, just to name one of them, but amongst many other great festivals as well. But theatres are a different ball game. They are great. I love them. But the audience, because it's Bowie, and Bowie's very kind of charismatic on stage and the moves, I find theatre audiences will just sit there like that, and they'll just look at you. They'll just stare at you like that, watching every move you do. And then we have like a 20-minute interval, and then the second half, by then they're all chatting away and they'll come back. And then I want to try and get them more on the feet, you know, and feel more involved. And they're great. I love the theatres, really do. I've played some wonderful ones.
Do you have a favourite venue of all that has special memories or anything like that?
Well, one comes to mind for me at the moment, and that was 2016, shortly after David passed. Unfortunately, the venue has now finished as a music venue, which is very sad. But it was a place called the Citadel in St Helens. Now, after Bowie passed, it was our first big show. We already had planned for months before, at the end of January. So literally about 3 weeks after Bowie had passed. And it sold out. It was absolutely rammed. And for me, that was a personal one. There was a lot of tears in the audience that night. Probably didn't help the way I just came on my own stage for acoustic guitar that gig, and did one of his songs of album called Hunky Dory called Quicksand. And I could literally see the first 3 or 4 rows. You can't see anything past that because of the way the lights project and hit you. And all I could see was a lot of tears on people's faces. But it turned out to be a very disappointing gig for us. It was a wonderful night. It really was, but for different reasons.
I believe you were in Germany when Bowie died.
Yes, I was. I was given the opportunity to play at Hansa Studios, where David had recorded some of his work in the late 70s, Heroes especially. And I went there performing on my own, just acoustic guitar, and there was about just over 300 Bowie fans there. A couple of other artists performed as well, and bands, and it really was a wonderful atmosphere. So I did about 45 minutes of Bowie singles and album tracks for that period, and what I remember was I was playing in the Great Hall where Bowie actually did his vocal for Heroes. So I did an acoustic version of Heroes, and you can feel and hear the whole sound around everything. So I can imagine what it was like at the time when he recorded his vocal there, because it's a big place. So it was a really special moment for me. And then, of course, not realising, I did another show the following day. And there was quite a few of us. There was about 20 of us, and it was like a party really. And it was just a wonderful time until that Monday morning. We were just leaving to get the train back to the airport when the news broke about David passing, and it was So you 1 minute you're right up there, and next minute it's right down the other end. It was a horrible day, a really horrible day.
Did you ever manage to see Bowie live?
Oh yeah, yes. I wanted to go and see him in 1978. I was 13 or 14, and because I didn't have a clue then how you got tickets, I completely missed out on seeing him on that tour. So I had to wait 5 years till 1983 on the Moonlight tour. I saw him about 3 times on that tour. All in all, I think I've seen him 11 or 12 times, right through to his last tour. So I've seen some varied shows that he's done, and every one of them has been great, absolutely brilliant. At the end of the 80s, he formed Tin Machine, and he wanted to break away from his. He felt like he'd got too commercial, and so he formed this band Tin Machine, and the songs were not really commercial. Great stuff, but he did a couple of albums and tours, so I got to see him on Tin Machine as well, and it was a different David Bowie.
Did you ever actually meet Bowie?
In 1985, I was very fortunate. I had a friend who I'd met, and he told me he was working on this film, and David Bowie's in it. So we arranged. He said, "Yeah, Paul, I can take you. I'm not going to be there now till probably. I'm going to be there Friday." That was it. So if you want to come with me, I thought, wow, fantastic. Anyhow, on the Friday, they didn't require him on the Friday, so he said, "Paul, it's going to be the Monday." I thought, okay, I'll do this. So I went straight down to Elstree Studios, and the film was Labyrinth. And I got there, and I wasn't sure. God, meeting David Bowie, I don't know. But what had happened was, unfortunately, he'd finished his filming on the Friday. So I went on the Monday and missed him. But I spent the whole day there, so I probably would have seen quite a bit of David Bowie that day had I been there on the Friday. So it just never happened then. But it was it was fantastic seeing some of the film set at the time. And of course, Labyrinth became massive, big film for Bowie. I did meet him very, very briefly in 1997 outside Rock City in Nottingham on the Earthling tour. And he was just, there was only about 10, 12 of us. And he came over to us signing autographs and everything like that. And he was really, really nice. So I gave him a CD of some of my material. And he basically just said, "Oh, thank you very much. I'll have a listen to that." And carried on signing things and went in, getting ready for the show. So that was the only time, and it was very brief. But yeah, it was great.
I understand you played at an arts club that Bowie used to perform at before he became famous.
Yes, the Arts Lab, 1969, during the time he'd written Space Oddity and was writing material for the album, and also the Man Who Sold the World album. He kept the Arts Lab going for a while. I had the privilege of being invited to go to it to perform with a couple of other acts as well. The wonderful thing about it, I mean, it used to be called the Three Tons, and it was a back room in the Three Tons. When I played it, it changed its name to the Rat and Parrot. It's now Zizi's Italian restaurant now, so it's all finished really. But there is a lot of Bowie nostalgia there, and there is a plaque on the wall outside. I did it twice, so I'll explain that. The first time, I went down to do an acoustic set, so there was a lot of people there, lots of people from that time, from the late 60s, people that knew David. And there was this guy that came up to me and Tracy and introduced himself. You couldn't miss him. He stood out for some reason. Quite a tall guy as well. And his name was Mark Carl Pritchard. Now, Mark Carl Pritchard played for Bowie in the early 70s. And he came up to me and Tracy and said, now, how would you like to play the same guitar that David wrote some of these songs on? And I thought, wow, that would be out of this world. So off he went, and about 20 minutes later, he came back with this 12-string Hagstrom guitar. And I was very privileged to be able to play it during that set. So here I was in this venue where David used to play, playing the same songs that David would have played at the time in front of some of the same people, and also playing David Bowie's Hagstrom guitar. So that was a real memorable experience for me. And then, of course, we did it the following year, and there was the unveiling of the plaque. I think I've got this right. So there's an official plaque on the outside of the building now to commemorate David Bowie's Arts Lab days there. So it was a wonderful time, great atmosphere, a lot of Bowie fans there as well, and it's something that'll stay with me. Sometimes it's the small things rather than the big festivals and massive theatres of thousands of people. Sometimes, it's the smaller things sometimes are sometimes more memorable. And then, of course, people I've got, thanks to Mark Carl Pritchard for that, who's still a good friend of mine. And he has actually played a couple of numbers with us about 3 years ago. He came to one of our shows in Bromley. And he's still active and playing guitar and doing really well. I also met Woody and Trevor over the years as well. That was a nice experience. I've met Woody a few times, but got to see Woody and Trevor play together in the late 90s, and spent a bit of time chatting with them as well about all the history and everything. So some exciting times there.
Yeah, incredible. How do you choose which songs to do in your sets?
Oh, right. That's an interesting one, because David's career, a vast repertoire, great music. I suppose for the festivals we tend to keep it very close to greatest hits. Your Space Oddity, Heroes, Let's Dance, Life on Mars, Starman. I mean, Life on Mars and Starman, there was a time you hardly heard them on the radio. These sort of songs now you're hearing literally every day on a radio station. So we do tend to do a lot of the biggest hits for the festivals. But some shows we do, if it's Bowie related, only Bowie related people come into them, then we have a field day, because we do a lot of hits, but it's also very rewarding to do a lot of the great album tracks he's done over his career. And that can range anything from songs like Moon Age Daydream, Look Back in Anger, Stay. I don't know if you'll know these songs, but there's so many. We've got a lot. We've got quite a big repertoire. I think we've got about 50 numbers we can do.
50?
Yeah, about 50 numbers we can play. But like I say, we do a lot of the big hits as a general audience pleaser. But it is nice to do, especially theatres as well. We give them the hits, but we throw in a couple of unexpected numbers as well. So I think it pleases everybody somewhere along the line. We try to, anyhow. Yeah.
Some of the costumes you wear as Bowie are fairly outlandish, as Bowie himself was often dressed.
Yeah, he even said that himself.
How do you obtain these costumes?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't do the Ziggy Stardust thing anymore, but the outfits, I've still got them. I've even got the one back from Stars and Rise I used to wear at some of the theatre shows I did. But yeah, the outfits are something else, especially from that period of the Ziggy Stardust days. And I mean, I had to get them specially made. The only big problem is it costs a fortune to do that. And then but the shows now, obviously, moving on from the Ziggy thing, there's a lot of great outfits, a lot of lovely suits as well. So I still get things made occasionally. They cost a lot of money, but I've got somebody who has made some wonderful outfits for me locally as well. And I've also managed to get a couple of ideas thrown together myself, which I've done. But I'm always looking for new outfits. So I can't keep still with wearing the same stuff all the time. I'm always looking for the next thing to wear. But yeah, lovely clothes.
What were your favourite Bowie incarnations? What were your favourite characters that he?
Oh, well, obviously it started off with Ziggy Stardust, especially 73, beginning of 73 when I discovered Bowie. Then, of course, I backtracked right to the beginning. That's one of them. I thought I liked the Thin White Duke as well. Was another favourite period of mine. Basically, a lot of the 70s and on the 80s, I thoroughly enjoyed the Glass Spider tour because it was very, very theatrical. David wasn't happy with the commercial aspect of his career at the time, but it was a fabulous tour to see. You didn't know where to look, though. There was so much going on. And then I suppose probably Earthling tour was great. But for me, I suppose defining moment for me would be his last tour he did, the reality tour. I was literally right at the front at Wembley Arena in November 2003. And I'll never forget, he did Ziggy Stardust and he came right at the front of the stage, and he just sort of looked at me and gave me this big grinning smile, as he does, and that, I think for me, that's probably one of the biggest ones for me, was that particular show.
Well, it's been a very interesting experience and very enjoyable, Paul. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Peter. It's been a pleasure.
Good. We will go over to the question and answer session now. Thank you.